All right. So good morning, everyone. Welcome to WISE's very last live streaming event here today. This is number 6 that we've done this week for Science Odyssey Week. My name is Joelle. I am the outreach coordinator for WISEist, so I get to go around and do all different types of outreach events at schools and things all across the province. I'll be moderating the panel today. We encourage you to engage with us as much as possible, so ask as many questions as you want live via YouTube. If you're in a classroom, please feel free to ask your teacher to ask the questions for us. And then you can pass them on, and I'll be moderating the questions. So our live streaming series today is Discovering a Whole New World, and really we just want to be able to get you to experience what it's like to be a woman working in a career or working towards a career in STEM. And so we have some wonderful panelists to help us do that today. And today we're specifically going to be talking about careers in STEM. So we're going to learn about all different types of careers in different directions and things that can help you get there. So let's start off with a quick introduction from all of our panelists before we get into some questions. So let's start over here with Jordan.
I'm Jordan. I grew up on a farm outside of Delia, Alberta, which is a very small town of 200 people just outside of Drumheller. And I came to the University of Alberta to do a bachelor's degree in geophysics, and then I went to NAIT to do a diploma in geological technology. And now I'm back at the University of Alberta doing a master's degree in geophysics, studying induced seismicity, which is earthquakes that are due to human activity. And I'm looking at the technical risk of those versus the perceived risk of them.
Hi, I'm Quinn. I grew up in Red Deer, Alberta, and then I came to Edmonton to do a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering with a specialization in biomedical engineering. And now I'm working towards a master's in biomedical engineering. So I work here at the university in a lab called the Blink Lab. And our mandate is basically to do research that helps to improve the technology of prosthetic limbs.
Well, I am Dr. Nazila Sadai. I came from Iran. I have done some works in rivers for my master, and I have worked on groundwater resources and also surface water resources for my PhD. And I came here as postdoc researcher in University of Alberta. I have started to work on wetlands and their hydrological systems. I modeled the water movement in the ground and on the surface of the ground, and also just in order to be able to study the effects of the removal of forests on the stream flow in the downstream part of the basin.
Hey everyone, my name is Heidi Kazuki. I am from Innisfail, Alberta, which is a small town about 2 hours south of Edmonton. It's not quite as small as where Jordan is from, but it's a rural town. And then I moved to Edmonton, and I started off in the Bachelor of Arts program for a year. Then after that, I transferred into a Bachelor of Science in Civil Environmental Engineering. I finished that off. I worked for about a year in engineering consulting, working in remediation, which is cleaning up different wastes. And then I came back to do my master's in environmental engineering. So right now I'm doing research to help clean up some of the waste streams from the oil sands in Alberta.
Hey everyone, I'm Sharon. I've grown up in Edmonton. So I graduated from the U of A with my Bachelor's of Science, majoring in biology and minoring in psychology. After that, I spent a year as a special student in the arts. And so now this September, I'm going to be moving to BC to start my Master's of Public Health, specializing in population health at Simon Fraser University.
Hi, I'm Dr. Kate St Onge. I am a botanist, and I've worked on quite a lot of different projects in plant biology, and right now I'm working on diseases and pests of Canadian forest trees. So I work on mountain pine beetle, for example, and spruce budworm. And I am from Edmonton originally. I did a couple of my degrees as well as some work abroad in Europe. So I was living abroad for 10 years, and I came back to Edmonton about 3 years ago to work on mountain pine beetle.
Great. Wow, very interesting. Lots of diverse people, lots of diverse fields in STEM. So that's exciting. Let's kick it off with a question about your career aspirations. So a lot of you are still students, or you're doing a postdoctoral research position. Where do you see your career heading, and what type of career aspirations do you have? So Jordan, let's start with you.
For me, it's very open, and I've actually worked kind of hard to keep it open because I don't know what I want to do yet. I my first choice would probably be to work with an environmental regulator of some kind, or maybe consulting in the industry, or even to be a teacher in some capacity, whether that's at university or at a college or somewhere like that. So,
Lots of options. Quinn?
So this is a difficult question in biomedical engineering, especially in Canada. It's not a huge industry. We have a few smaller companies, but not too many. So most of the work is in research. And I personally don't want to become a professor, so there isn't really like a really clear roadmap of like, oh, if you do this and then this and then this, you'll get a job in biomedical engineering. So yeah, to be honest, I don't exactly know. Right now, I am finishing up my master's, and then I'm really lucky in that my lab has a decent amount of funding, so I'm going to be able to keep working to kind of finish up that project and see it through a little bit, and I'm excited about that. And then I'm not exactly sure. My aspiration is that I would like to work in a company that's doing some sort of biomedical engineering work, but where exactly that will be, I don't know.
Great.
Actually, there are some work aspirations for environmental sciences. The first one is a traditional success in the career. Some people just seek enhancement, seek some kind of positions or jobs to enhance their professional skills in order to achieve advancements in the organization's hierarchy levels. And also, these kind of people seek some kind of positions in order to establish status, higher salary, authorities. We have different work aspirations for environmental sciences. The first one is about the traditional success in career. The second one is about the security. Some positions in the environmental sciences offer permanent positions, and you're going to just share that you're going to have your job for the rest of your life. And there is another work aspiration in environmental sciences is about the freedom. If I was a person who just seek individualism, independence in the work, and so this is another work aspiration for environmental sciences. Also, there is something like balance. Some people seek some kind of positions or careers that respect their personal interests. So if you are the person who just seek these jobs that respect your personal interests or non-work interests, I think it's better to choose environmental sciences because you're going to have all of this together.
So lots of different options there. Yeah. Heidi, how about you? What are your career aspirations?
So for me, after I'm done my master's, I'll be starting my PhD in January. And then after that, I'm hoping to be a research engineer, so probably working in industry, possibly in oil and gas. There's a chance I could come back and be a professor, but that's not my main goal, but I could change my mind. So, but for right now, I want to be a research engineer.
For me, I'm not really sure where my master's is going to take me, so I might end up doing my PhD after, or I might end up working, or doing both eventually. But I do know I kind of want to focus my work and my research on women's health or maternal health. So yeah, definitely something within that field.
At the moment, I am a postdoctoral researcher here at the University of Alberta, and that position is wrapping up here this summer. So I am actually looking for a new job at the moment, and I would like to be a director of research at a company or a government department that does plant science, some kind of research in plant sciences. So I'm looking for those kinds of opportunities right now.
So lots of different avenues, lots of different areas, different directions to take, and I think having some flexibility can be really helpful with that too. Another question, what sort of opportunities were made available to you to help you when you were trying to pick your career? What sort of opportunities did you have that you think might be helpful for you? Jordan, do you want to start?
Sure. When I was in high school, we took a class called CALM, which is Career and Life Management, which sounds really useful but isn't always. But one of the things that we did was one of those online career pickers where you do sort of a quiz and it tells you what you would be suitable in. I don't actually remember what the result of that was, but it was a good way to sort of get a list of things that are possibilities and that makes you think in new directions. And I had a lot of like suggestions from my peers and from, you know, the adults in my life, and then there's always like the lists of things that you could do on the internet. There's tons of resources, and the way that I ended up picking geophysics actually was I just was scrolling through the list of programs at universities in Alberta. So, yeah.
Just happened to work out, and sometimes it works out that way. Great. Quinn, how about you? What sort of opportunities were available to you when you were trying to pick the direction your career is going in?
So in high school, I also did a career quiz or something, but I think it told me I should be a sign maker. But I think I did use still that website to just sort of, like, they also had functionality that was like, well, if you're interested in this, like, here's these things that are related. And I sort of, like, eventually went down, like, a chain of things that led me to find out that biomedical engineering was a thing that existed. We had a career counselor at my high school, which is nice. I don't know how common that is. And so she sort of knew a little bit about different programs that exist at the universities. And so, yeah, talking to someone who has that knowledge is good. I almost think it would be more useful to talk to, like, current students at a university in some way.
What we're doing today.
Yeah. Because they're going to have more current information than...
So was the career counselor the one who helped you decide to go into engineering, or was that something you came to on your own?
Yeah, no, that I came to on my own, actually.
Okay. And was that from taking specific courses in high school, or any extracurricular activities, anything like that?
Yeah, I would say it was a combination of taking specific courses and just really enjoying physics and biology, and then just learning that, like, biomedical engineering was possibly a thing that might allow me to sort of combine those interests. And then also I had some of my friends' parents were engineers, and so they sort of encouraged me to look into engineering also.
Mm-hmm. So finding role models or mentors or something like that, always very helpful. How about you, Nazila? What sort of opportunities did you have that helped you pick a career?
Actually, we had mentors in school, and we talked so much to them just in order to be able to find our path in the future. And so another thing was about taking a part in internship programs. There were some internship courses that we had in school, so they helped a lot. And also, I remember that I spoke with so many people. And also, there was another thing I remember doing, that I tried to make a kind of career plan based on my goals and interests, and then based on that, I just chose environment.
Great. So you tried to make some sort of a career plan based on the different types of things that you were interested in.
Yes.
Sounds like it could be helpful. How about you, Heidi? Any opportunities, and this doesn't have to be just in high school, and whether in university, anything like that helped you choose your career direction?
Yeah, so like I said before, I started in the Bachelor of Arts because I didn't really picture myself in STEM. And then once I was in the Bachelor of Arts program, I realized that there were so many other opportunities, and the Bachelor of Arts is a great program, but it didn't play to my strengths. I really love math and science. And so I kind of picked engineering on a whim, which is not the best way to make a life decision, but it worked out just fine. I didn't know any engineers, but I knew they did math and science, and that's really what I wanted to do. So I picked engineering, and it worked out quite well. But
great. How about you, Sharon?
I think it was really like my courses and my learning experiences in high school that really pushed me towards majoring biology. But then it was just kind of like the courses that I took in my undergrad, and then my extracurricular experiences as well. So like volunteering at the Stollery, and like volunteering as a research assistant, and then taking a year as a special student where I focused a lot on women's and gender studies. That really kind of helped me bring together like my passion for science and biology with my passion for like women's studies. And so now I'm pursuing public health. Yeah.
Great.
I also remember taking column class in high school, career and life management, and I mean, as a high school student attending these kind of classes, most people are rolling their eyes, including myself. But I have to say that it was in that class, exploring some kind of career program or something, that I realized that I wanted to be a plant biologist. I knew I always wanted to be in science. I knew I wanted to be a scientist, but I didn't know what type of science that I was interested in. And I think generally the take-home message is kind of you do have to sit down and spend some time thinking about these things. You do have to go online and like play around with some of these career programs just to get ideas and explore the options. I think before I took comm, I didn't know that botanist was a thing that I could be, and you have to sit down and spend some time and think about it and explore to figure out what you want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And exploring a lot of those different experiences can help you figure out either something that you really don't like in a direction you really don't want to go in, or in the case of you can say, wow, I really love plants and I just want to study plants. So great. We have a few great live questions coming in. So let's start with this one. What are the biggest challenges of working in a STEM field today as a woman? Does anyone want to jump in and talk about any challenges? Heidi, you work in engineering, which traditionally is still a male-dominated field. Do you have any comments on that?
So in my undergrad program, I was actually very lucky. Environmental engineering is typically half females, half males. And because they were my peers and the same age, there weren't a lot of issues in my undergrad program. It might be different in mechanical, perhaps. But then once you get into the workforce, sometimes there can be a couple, not issues, but people who are older than you, who maybe aren't used to women in that field. You might have to work a little bit harder, or just kind of look for the right individual to help you and be your mentor. And it doesn't have to be a woman, but sometimes you do need to work a little bit harder, or just make yourself a leader. Even if you're not confident doing that, you really need to stick up for yourself. And it's not necessarily an issue; it's just a challenge, but it's you can overcome it for sure.
Quinn, was it any different for you? Did you have a different experience in mechanical engineering?
Not too much, actually. Mechanical engineering is a little less balanced. I think we had maybe 30% or a bit less than that of females. And I pretty quickly made a really good friend group that was all people that I didn't feel treated me differently at all. Sometimes you're forced to work in like groups that you were put into, like on a group project that you didn't choose. And so I did have like a couple experiences with, people that, I felt sort of like judged my intelligence without knowing anything about me. Mm-hmm. And you just have to prove them wrong.
Yeah, so be determined, prove them wrong, and I bet all of them can. Jordan, in geophysics, what is that experience like for you?
My graduating class for my undergraduate degree, there was about 25 of us, and 4 of us were women. Mm-hmm. But one of my best friends from that was like the top of our class, and so though the numbers weren't there, there was no judgment on your intelligence or anything like that, because we proved ourselves. Mm-hmm. It's in academia, it's pretty good. Nobody really goes out of their way to treat you differently, mostly just because by the time that you get there, you've had to prove yourself enough times that like you've basically proven that you're meant to be there. Mm-hmm. I think it is a little bit different in industry, and there's a little bit more of a mindset that women don't quite belong there, or they have to work harder in order to fit in. So it really depends on where you're going.
Do you think that's starting to change?
I think so, but I think because there's a lot going on in the oil and gas industry right now, where there's a lot of older generation people who aren't retiring, partly because they can't afford to, or they don't want to because they love the job. But because of that, then the new people can't come in, and it's the younger generation that has less of a problem with the gender divide and stuff like that. So it is changing, but it's slower, just because that older generation that maybe is a little bit more set in their way of thinking is still around.
Okay. Yeah, so it's changing, maybe not quite as quickly, but maybe by the time all these high school students are done and graduated, they'll be in this fun new workforce. We have lots of great live questions. Let's go to one from Angela. She said, can you describe a day in the life of you as a STEM student in university? Just kind of curious about that. Anybody want to jump in? Sharon, you just recently graduated with your bachelor's degree. What was a day in the life like for you?
Yeah, so in my undergrad, a typical day would have started off with me waking up in the morning, coming into campus for classes. So I lived off campus. I'm sure if you live on campus, your experience might be a little different. And I would typically have around like 4 or 5 hours of classes, 4 hours of classes a day. And I'd finish at around 2 or 3. Depending on what day it was, I would maybe have a lab, and those are usually around 3 hours, I think, in most fields. So yeah, and if it was another day, I might spend that kind of block of time volunteering instead. And my afternoons and evenings would kind of be, would be free, but they would mostly involve studying or taking some time out for myself and going to the gym. And yeah.
Great. Now, Kate, you said that you've had some experiences at universities in Europe and in other countries. That sounds to me like a pretty typical day for a university student here in Canada, but was it a little bit different when you went to other countries?
Yeah, they do have quite a different way of scheduling courses in Europe. And even grading students. For example, here in North America, I think both in Canada and the United States, people are graded on this 4-point scale. You get A's and B's and C's and all of those kinds of grades, and everyone is very finely divided along this scale. In Sweden, they have a very different attitude, and they actually most courses only have 3 grades, which is like fail and good job and very good job. So they really only distinguish between students who aren't really completing their work properly, students who are completing it just fine and doing a great job, and then there's the group that are like, these are our really top achievers, and that's the only way that they make divisions there. So I didn't actually really take courses like that when I was there, because I was, I took a few during my master's, but as a PhD student, I was teaching those kinds of courses, and I liked giving out those kinds of grades better than I do teach as a sessional here, and it's not really fun as a professor to have to like finally divide all your students across this grading scale and judge them against each other isn't the best. So yeah, they have a different attitude there, and I think I'm not necessarily thinking that it's better there or here, but maybe something in between those two would be a little bit easier for students to deal with.
Interesting. And now, as somebody who has had a perspective on both sides, both as a student and as a professor or a teacher, instructor, do you have any specific advice that you'd be able to give to somebody who might be going into university within the next few years to help them succeed?
As a student, I would say, as a student, I was very much an overachiever, a classic overachiever, and I was very hard on myself when I didn't get the grades that I wanted to have, which was straight A's all the time as an overachiever, and I think that was really hard on myself, and I think it would have been a better experience for me if I was just took it a little easier on myself and accepted that I wasn't amazing at every single course that I took, because that's hard, and like university life is hard, and you're usually taking five courses all in one semester, and they can be math and biology and English, like different topics too. So it's hard to manage all of those things all at once, and it's okay sometimes if one course gets away from you.
Yeah, so still work hard, but don't be too hard on yourself. try to find a little bit of that balance and flexibility that we've talked about too. Great. So we have a whole bunch of questions. So kind of going back to what we were talking about, the question prior to that, when I know, Jordan, you were talking a little bit about some of the older generation and some of the younger generation. Does anybody have any tips for potentially bridging the gap between the younger generation, you coming up in your fields, and connecting with some of those people who have been in the fields for a while? Does anybody want to jump in, have some tips?
I would say get to know them. There are a lot of times where they're judging you because they don't know you and they don't know what you're capable of, and so if you get to know them and you show them on a personal level like who you are and what you're capable of and stuff like that, it makes it a lot easier. And if you get to know, like, say even just one person in your office of a different, like the older generation, then they start talking you up to like the other people in the office that are of the same generation, and then it starts to get a little bit easier from there on. So
Sounds good. Anybody else have anything they want to add?
And I think don't be scared of those people who just are older than you, because they're just just sometimes the younger generation are scared to present what they are capable of, and so I think that it's just better to be okay and just be patient, and in just making this kind of relationship a little bit smoother, and I think if you just feel a little relaxed in front of them, one day you're gonna be one of them, and then it's not a big deal, just like you can do it.
Great. So yeah, go ahead.
I do just want to throw in real quick. Don't watch this video and assume that everyone who is like much older than you is going to assume that you're incompetent because you're a woman. And I don't think anyone here meant to give that impression. I don't want to imply that. But I have worked with some fantastic people who were like in their 80s and were super wonderful, great men that never ever made assumptions about me. And so definitely like don't go into any circumstance just like assuming that everyone older than you is gonna like.
Yeah, like jumping on that, like the very first research opportunity that was given to me was actually by a much older male researcher. So like, it's not just everyone in the field. Yeah.
And some of the best mentors that I've had in my career have been different people who were much further along in their career than I was, which was great. Awesome. So a few other questions. What role does failure play in your research and your STEM career? Do you succeed at every experiment? Have you had to try a couple times? Kate, did you have anything to say on that?
Yeah. In the beginning, failure was really hard for me. I took it really hard, and I didn't realize that you can fail and still continue and like not lose any kind of face with the people you're working with. When you're working in science, sometimes experiments don't work. They just don't, or they work but you didn't find the result that you were expecting. And it's not that you've failed and not that your experimental design was poor. I mean, sometimes it is, but hindsight is always 20/20. Yeah. So try to learn from the failure and like move forward in a positive direction, and like don't assume that everyone attaches you as a failure because you've had one failure. It doesn't really work that way.
Anybody else have anything to add?
And also, when you fail in something, just learn from it, and then because after failure, maybe after thousands of failures, you're gonna have a very good achievement, and that kind of achievement would come from your learnings, how much you have learned from those failures. Just look at the failures as a kind of an opportunity to learn something.
Mm-hmm. I actually failed a math course in my first year, and that was hard, and I really liked math and was really good at math in high school, and so it was a shock to me that it was so hard for me in university. And I got that grade back and just didn't really know what to do with it. I kind of laughed, but wasn't sure if I should cry. And but I retook that course over the summer, and I got an A+. And so it's like failure isn't the end of the world, and you can still go on, and you can learn from it. You can advance. Even in spite of it, or maybe because of that I'm better at math because I learned it twice.
And so would you say having that experience fairly early on in your undergraduate career, do you think that actually ended up making you more successful in the long run, or made you work harder? What type of experience did that?
Yeah, I think it changed my attitude towards studying, because I didn't really have to study in high school, and it's hard to get adjusted to that in university. If you're the kind of person that didn't have to study in high school, you're gonna have to study in university. So it kind of changed my attitude on that, and it changed my approach to studying as well. So I really made an effort to find the way of studying that works for me, because it's not the same for everybody. So, yeah.
That's great, and I know that's something that a lot of students struggle with when they first come to university, so that's great advice.
The campus has a lot of resources for new students, and there's the Student Success Center here on campus, and you can go there and they have a large variety of different ways that you can get help on how to study and how to actually be successful in your undergraduate studies on campus. And I always tell my students to access that. Many students come in thinking, like, I don't need that because I was good in high school, but as Jordan said, studying in university can be really different, and there's more than one way to do it successfully, and the Student Success Center here on campus has a lot of different resources for students.
That's great. And I just want to add quickly that I think failure is part of scientific research, and that actually sometimes that failure is sometimes what really helps us make those really amazing and great discoveries too. So whether you think you're failing at classes or different things, or whether it's your research itself, sometimes some of the best discoveries and the best learning opportunities can come from that, like Jordan, or with various research, things like that. Great. Another interesting question. What is the most interesting thing you've done throughout your research or throughout your career? What's the most interesting thing you've kind of come across? Heidi, do you have anything to add to that?
I don't know. Interesting.
Interesting, fascinating. I don't know. Some of the research you do sounds
cool.
Is
pretty interesting. So my background is in civil engineering and environmental engineering, but right now I'm working on a process that's entirely chemical engineering, and so it's interesting to me that I have a bachelor's in civil environmental engineering, but I am more than capable of doing a chemical engineering process. And my master's is in environmental engineering, so I don't have chemical engineering course background, but I could still do the chemical engineering process just fine. So it's interesting that you sort of learn a skill set that you're not really aware of it. So I can do chemical engineering. I'm sure Quinn could do chemical engineering, environmental. It's just you've sort of learned a skill set that maybe you didn't know that you had.
Anything else? What's the most interesting, fascinating, cool thing you've experienced?
Well, I have done lots of crazy things during my education years. I have had my laboratory, a very small laboratory at home, and I have used the light bulbs as my dishes, the laboratory dishes, and then I have just tried to make something like new in there, and then one day I did it actually, but the circumstances came after that. But it ended up to publishing some patents in the United States and in Iran. And then I'm so glad that I have done those crazy things, but you do not do that. I don't suggest it. And then I have done some kind of research things for interdisciplinary research. It's just like I try to work on something that was, for example, that was between different disciplines, so like, for example, biology, physics, chemistry together, just something like that, and just the combination of these kind of things. I thought maybe it's going to be so fantastic to have a research that had all of this together. And then, environment has all of this, just integrates disciplines, different disciplines, such as, for example, biology, chemistry, and physics, and also the social sciences. We have all of this together in environmental sciences. So I'm happy for that. I'm just in environmental sciences right now.
Yeah. So you found it really interesting that when somebody thinks of the environment, they might think of biology or something like that. But really, there's a lot of interdisciplinary. And there's lots of different approaches you can explore that from. Great. Quinn, do you have anything to add? What's something interesting that you've come across in your research or in your experiences?
There's a lot. I feel like you almost get numb to it, but I'm trying to think of them, and I feel like there are a lot. Modern medicine routinely blows my mind. one of the participants that we have who has an amputation, we have a lot of people come in to like do experiments with us who have had amputations, and so it's so cool to talk to them all the time. And I know one who survived being hit by a train and another one who survived a helicopter crash, which is like, I didn't know you could survive either of those things.
Wow.
Modern medicine is crazy. We have people who have had like the nerves in their arms rewired so that they can like use a prosthetic device better. And it's like, that's crazy to me that that's a surgery that exists and you can do that. And then on like a different note, I have a colleague who does improv comedy with a robot, and so like he does like artificial intelligence. It's very cool, and I think that there are like a lot of really cool things that are going on in science, and I don't know, that's a few off the top of my head.
Oh, that sounds great. Those all sound really interesting. Kate, do you have anything to add? Maybe from a slightly different perspective? I know forests are really important.
Yeah, I mean, I find everything I learn about plants is just fascinating. I love them. I find them very, very interesting. Mm-hmm. I can say that something I didn't, I always expected that everything that I find in plants will be interesting to me. But I found that since I've moved institutes so many times and countries so many times, I realized that landing in a new place and a new environment is extremely stimulating and motivating. And I feel like changing your personal environment and your work environment periodically is surprisingly and very interestingly stimulating and creative for me. So yeah, I didn't think I would find that, and I find it really interesting that I'm learning that about myself, that I need to have a big change in what I'm doing every 3-4 years to keep motivated and stimulated and moving forward.
Great, and I'm sure it helps with creativity and research. Absolutely, and exploring different environments, things like that.
Getting new team members,
Yeah, wonderful. So we just have a few more minutes left. One last question to round it off. Lots of questions coming in. What do you wish you had been told as a high school student who had some sort of interest in STEM, in science, engineering, something like that? What is something that you wish you'd been told, or something you wish you had had the ability to experience as a high school student? Anybody want to jump in?
I wish I'd been told how much coding was going to happen, no matter what field you go into, so that I could learn it early on. And just how interdisciplinary it is. Like, even if you're in, say, physics, you're going to need to know some chemistry, and probably some biology will help you out as well. I know some people who use methods and theories from biology in their physics. Mm-hmm. And it's just, there's a whole lot of cross-discipline experiments and knowledge and stuff like that, so...
Yeah, so having that broad base of knowledge can help to support you once you figured out a little career path to go down, and help you narrow that down and support you. Great. Anybody else have anything to add? What advice, what do you wish you'd been told as a high school student?
I wish I have been told to be more, just like smoother and gentler on myself, just because I was so hard on myself, and then to choose the best thing as I could, and also I wish that I have spoken with more people. Maybe I could find another thing. I don't know. Just it just comes to my mind that what if I have talked with more people, but I think I'm glad that's what I need, right?
Yeah, so you wanted to potentially, the advice would be to maybe chat with other people in fields that you might be interested in, and to kind of get some firsthand perspectives, right?
And also, I wish that I have been told to be able or determined to obey, or maybe learn. It's better to say learn to remove the distractions on my ways. Because there are so many distractions in every career path. Mm-hmm. And if we learn how to remove those distractions from our paths, I think that we would be successful in any major, in any career path.
Great. Anybody else with any advice?
I was going to add, too, that I was told this, but I'm glad that I was, is that it's okay if you don't have it figured out. Mm-hmm. And it's okay if you don't have it figured out when you're 25. because like nobody really has it figured out all the way, and it can be uncertain and it can be frustrating, and that's okay. You just kind of roll with it.
Yeah, great. Any last pieces of advice?
I mean, to repeat what Jordan said, I wish I had been told to learn to code. I wish I had been told that I was capable of it, because I definitely went into university like, this makes no sense to me. I clearly can't do this. And then it was like, oh, yeah, I can. And it's fun and it's useful. So see the last video we did for more discussion on coding. And I wish I had been told... I wish I had been told to look a little bit more into like the careers that existed and things that I wanted to do. And yeah, get more insight into that.
Great. Wonderful. Any last words of wisdom, anybody?
I wish, honestly, like, I wish I'd been told to put myself out there more, especially during the beginning of my undergrad, because I was kind of, like, reluctant to get involved. Like, I thought I wasn't capable of things that everyone else was doing, but now that I look back, like, everyone else was just like me, so I probably could have done some stuff, too. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think if you're interested in something, just go for it. It might scare you, but that's not a bad thing. And don't be intimidated by what other people are doing. You're probably just as capable, if not more so. So just kind of go for it and don't hold yourself back, especially in the beginning.
I think that is a great note to end on. So it looks like that is all the time we have for today. So on behalf of Wisest, I would love to thank all of our amazing panelists for all of the help they have done and all the advice they've given today to take some time out of their busy schedules. For all of you out there, Wisest's next big event is our annual SET conference. So that's Science, Engineering, and Technology. That's for females in grades 10 through 12, and that'll be in November 24th, so save that date. And if you're interested in coming to that SET conference and you registered today, make sure to fill out the evaluation survey that you'll receive in your email to receive a $20 discount to attend the SET conference. If you are watching, you found us on social media or something, and you would like to register, you'd like that discount, just head on over to the Wisest website. The link will be in the description box, and you can sign up from there to receive the evaluation survey. All right. Well, thanks so much, and we hope you have a great day. Thanks.